Justice, featuring Frederick Douglass, the historical benefits of the black man's footsteps in America. Music by royalty-free Native American drums. Information regarding Frederick Douglass was pulled from Wikipedia with images from the Getty Images. Frederick Douglass, born Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey, February 1818, was an American social reformer, abolitionist, orator, writer, and statesman. After escaping from slavery in Maryland, he became a national leader of the abolitionist movement on the East Coast, gaining note for his oratory and his anti-slavery writing. In his time, he was described by abolitionists as a living counterexample to slaveholders' arguments that slaves lacked the intellectual capacity to function as independent American citizens. Northerners at the time found it hard to believe that such a great orator had once been a slave. Douglass wrote several autobiographies. He described his experiences as a slave in his 1845 autobiography, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, which became a bestseller and was influential in promoting the cause of abolishing slavery, as was his second book, My Bondage and My Freedom, written in 1855. After the Civil War, Douglass remained an active campaigner against slavery, and he wrote his last autobiography, Life and Times of Frederick Douglass, first published in 1881 and revised in 1892, 3 years before he passed. It covered events during and after the Civil War. Douglass actively supported women's rights, held several public offices, and without his approval, Douglass became the first African American nominated for Vice President of the United States. As the running mate and vice presidential nominee of Victoria Woodhull on the Equal Rights Party ticket. Douglass was a firm believer in the equality of all people, whether white, black, female, Native American, or Chinese immigrants. He was also a believer in dialogue and in making alliances across racial and different divides, and in the liberal value of the U.S. Constitution. When radical abolitionists under the thought no union with slaveholders criticized Douglass's willingness to engage in dialogue with slave owners, he replied, I would unite with anyone to do right and with no one to do wrong. Douglass was known to be of mixed race, which would likely include Native American and African on his mother's side, as well as European. His father was almost certainly white, as shown by historian David W. Blight in his 2018 biography of Douglass. He said his mother, Harriet Bailey, gave him his grand name. After escaping to the North years later, he took the surname Douglass, having already dropped his 2 middle names. He later wrote of his earliest times with his mother. The opinion was whispered that my master was my father, but of correctness of this opinion I knew nothing. My mother and I were separated when I was but an infant. It was common custom in the part of Maryland from which I ran away to part children from their mothers at a very early age. I do not recollect ever seeing my mother by the light of day. She would lie down with me and get me to sleep, but long before I wake, she was gone. After separating from his mother during infancy, young Douglass lived with his maternal grandmother, Betsy Bailey, who was a slave, and his maternal grandfather, Isaac, who was free. Frederick's mother, Harriet, remarried on the plantation about 12 miles away and only visited Frederick a few times before she died when he was 7. His grandmother, Betsy Bailey, would live until 1849. At the age of 6, Frederick was separated from his grandparents also and moved to another plantation where Aaron Anthony worked as an overseer. This is the first part 1 of Frederick Douglass and the historical benefits of the black man's footsteps in America. Please comment, subscribe, share on my Heavenly Justice channel. If you have additional information, I, as a historian, also read very young that Frederick Douglass was beaten so badly he almost lost his eye. I believe it was his left eye. So I'm going to be investigating literature to find out more about him. But again, please like, comment, and share. Subscribe to my channel. Peace, blessing, prosperity to all, and stay safe. I will be putting out another part 2 on Frederick Douglass next Friday. Not tomorrow, Friday, January 10th, but next Friday after 6 p.m. Peace, blessing, prosperity to all, and stay safe.